Time now for Marriage Builders, building marriages to last a lifetime. Also online at marriagebuilders.com. Now, here's Joyce Harley and Dr. Bill Harley.
Well, good day to you. Glad you could join us for Marriage Builders Radio. You've sent us questions about your marriages and even reports on how things are going. So we look forward to answering and discussing all of them during this hour. Joining us now for this discussion is my husband, Dr. Bill Harley, licensed clinical psychologist and best-selling author on marriage. Well, we got a lot of good reports here on people who have been with us and their spouses are reporting back to us, and it's good reading.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one I want to begin with is a wife of one of our callers that we had recently. And words like this just bring encouragement. And I must say, too, I think it will encourage our listeners as well. But what we have here is the caller who came on and said he was willing to do anything. And then his wife, who listened, who was already willing to do anything, is now so happy that the two of them are in this together in repairing their marriage.
And that's what it takes.
That's what it takes, right.
Got to have both of them or rowing the boat.
Yeah, exactly. and I think the reason I emphasize that, and you do too, is that we have had so many where we don't know what the spouse is going to do.
Well, and a lot of people ask us the question, can one person save the marriage?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that is that one person can provide an example and can eliminate some of the negatives, but in the final analysis, it takes both couples.
They have to be both
spouses,
on board. Yeah.
To be able to save a marriage, right.
Well, here's what this wife who is reporting on her husband's recent visit with us, she said, I just wanted to thank you for all your help. Listening to the program allowed me to understand my husband more. I listened to the show and I was moved by how truthful he was with you. He didn't try to cover up or minimize his mistakes, and he asked you for help. The night the show aired, my husband and I had a long conversation using the guidelines of successful negotiation, and divorce is off the table. I've decided to give him an opportunity to show me that I can trust him. I love him, and I want to have a great, happy marriage with him. I am committed to do what it takes to achieve that. And then she thanks us for the materials that we sent to them. Thank you for the workbook. Both my husband and I are enthusiastic about working on it. I think she's referring to 5 Steps to Romantic Love.
Yep.
And I have read the article on how to complain in marriage, which is your most recent art. Well, no, it's not your most recent.
It's what I did in December.
Right?
A month ago.
And I also listened to the chapter on communication from his needs, her needs, as you advised us. I listen to your show every day, and I'm learning new things from every show. Again, thank you, and I will keep you updated on our progress.
And I might just mention, it's the chapter on conversation, actually, in his needs, her needs. But in that conversation, in that chapter, I put a lot of emphasis on people reading it again and again and again. The point being that conversation, and it's intimate conversation that I talk about in that chapter, is so important in marriage that if you don't have that one figured out, the rest of it is going to be extremely difficult to achieve. And so a lot of times what I'll encourage people to do is to look at the friends of good conversation. You know, how should you talk to each other? And then the enemies, what should you avoid in talking to each other? And a lot of times people I'll tell them to read the chapter, and then when I talk to them, I said, okay, tell me what the friends are. Well, they don't really know. I said, you have to memorize the friends, okay. And then I want you to be able to explain them to me, and tell me what the enemies are and explain them to me. Now, when I was a teacher, actually I created tests when I was teaching college level. I created tests that would cover memory, which is that they would just remember what a particular thing was called.
Mm-hmm.
Comprehension, what was the meaning of it? Could they explain it to me in other words, for example? That would be on the test. The third would be analysis. What good is it?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a useful concept to you as an individual? And then finally, application. How would you use it? Now, that you think that's pretty complicated. Well, those were 4 questions I asked about every issue that was raised in the psychology course that I taught. So basically what they had to do is thoroughly understand this material for the purpose of learning it. In other words, when you go to learn something, you have to understand it to such an extent that you can apply it.
All those principles would be even good for people in Bible study. The principles that are in the scriptures.
Yeah, they're Bloomberg's taxonomy, actually.
Okay, we'll give him credit.
I got them from Bloomberg. But it's a very, very well-known and very well-respected approach to education. And so when I want people to read the chapter on conversation, what I want them to do is to be able to have memory. I mean, what was there? Tell me what the friends are, for crying out loud. If you can't tell me what the friends are, we can't possibly get on with the rest of it.
But the enemies too. That's important to
friends
understand.
And enemies both.
When they come up, the enemies, you'll recognize them then.
And then I want to be able to put it in your own words. In other words, don't use my words. Use your own words. And then the idea is, what do you think of it? And analyze it for me. Are the friends? Do you agree with me about them being the friends? Do you think that there should be other friends, more important friends? How about the enemies? Do you think sometimes it's a good idea to have these enemies, even though they wreck your relationship?
That it makes you feel better?
Give me some analysis, and then finally application. I mean, now start using this material. And I have to say that it's probably one of the best chapters I've ever written. It's hard to emphasize enough the value of enjoyable conversation in marriage. Because what often happens when you're dating, of course, is you all of these friends and enemies are covered. I mean, really, you're doing this kind of thing, especially if it leads to marriage. And then somehow or other, in your marriage, you start spending all of your time with conflicts. And instead of just trying to understand each other and trying to talk about each other's favorite topics of conversation and being polite in the way you're talking to each other, what you try to do is you're making demands, you're being disrespectful, you're being angry, you're bringing up the problems of the past, you're doing everything wrong. And so it's no surprise that eventually when I talk to people about going out on a date, they say, well, Dr. Harley, our dates haven't been very successful. And that's why the conversation has not achieved the objectives of the conversation chapter in His Needs, Her Needs. So I encourage all the listeners to get out their copy of His Needs, Her Needs, and go to chapter 6, I believe it is.
There was a questionnaire.
And read the chapter on conversation and think about Bloomberg's taxonomy. Okay, tell me what the friends are. Give me the names of them, and then say it in your own words. What does it mean? What do these things mean? The third is analyze them. Do you agree with me? Did I get it right? What are the pros and cons of thinking in these terms? And then do it in your relationship with each other.
Would those points be beneficial to have as part of a conversation between you and your spouse? Bloomberg's taxonomy questions.
Well, I think so.
I mean, that would be a conversation. Yeah. If you and I sat down and said, okay, let's ask these 4 questions regarding your friends of conversation and the enemies of conversation. Okay, now before we leave this segment, we've been talking about the friends and enemies, and we have not listed them, so let's just list them. The friends are.
I know
you have. I know you have.
The first friend is to understand each other by inquiry and revealing to each other information. So, in other words, if you ask me a question, I need to answer it. I'll answer it honestly, in an effort to understand you. I want to understand you. And the one enemy that would go along with that would be judging you. In other words, once you reveal information about yourself, I dare not judge that information.
Okay, number 2.
Because then I will cut it off. Number 2 is to develop an interest in your topics of conversation. Number 3 is that you it's an etiquette thing, balance the conversation. Nobody should be talking more than another and you shouldn't interrupt. And number 4 is you should give each other undivided attention when you are talking intimately. Get rid of that cell phone.
Okay, we're up against a break, but we're going to get the enemies laid out for you on the other side and then move on to other emails that have come our way. But look it up in Chapter 6 of His Needs, Her Needs, the friends and enemies of good conversation. We'll be right back with Marriage Builders Radio. Join the thousands of couples who have learned step by step how to experience a meaningful and fulfilling love relationship. They did this by completing Dr. Harley's online seminar and home study courses, His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. Here's how it works. You'll begin by watching an online seminar where Dr. Harley will help you identify the problems you face in your marriage. Then, the home study courses will show you how to solve those marital problems in a systematic way. Go to marriagebuilders.com homepage and click the tab Courses, Seminar, and Accountability. Look for program number 2 for a description of the seminar and the courses. Then follow the instructions on that page to place your order. Start the program the day the package arrives. And if you're not completely satisfied, send it back to us within 30 days, and you'll receive a full refund, including shipping charges. Restore passion to your marriage. Order today. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Well, let's quickly go back to the conversation that was inspired by the wife of one of our callers, where she was getting glowing report on how they are working together to solve the issues in their marriage. And she referenced reading the chapter on conversation from His Needs, Her Needs. And so Dr. Harley was letting us know the importance of understanding the 5 friends of good conversation.
4 friends.
Excuse me. I'm sure we could come up with a 5th. The 4 friends of good conversation. And now we're going to review the 4 enemies, and then we'll move on from that.
Yeah, and generally you have to think about the 4 enemies coming up in the context of a conflict of some kind. And so the question really turns out to be, how should you be spending your time for intimate conversation? And it's sort of interesting when you're trying to develop a romantic relationship with somebody and you're aware that conversation is a big deal. What you want to do is try to get the person to talk about the problems that they face, and then you discuss the problems with them. So, I mean, problems come up in romantic relationships a lot, but they don't come up as a conflict so much as a problem to be solved. In other words, it is a conflict in the sense that you might think differently about how to solve the problem. But at the same time, in a romantic relationship, you're trying to help the person solve the problem as opposed to preventing the person from solving the problem the way they want to solve it. So the enemies come up in the context of problem solving. So the first is that, you're having a conversation and there is something about the other person that you don't like. I just had an email this morning about this where the husband parked the car in the wrong place from the wife's perspective. So she wanted him to park it in a different place. And so what she said was, you parked it in the wrong place. So that's disrespectful. It's disrespectful. How should she have put it? She would have said, it bothers me that you're parking here. I would really appreciate it if you would park there.
But now you talked about the first enemy as being judgmental.
No, the first enemy is demands.
Oh, see, you talked about judgment in the earlier segment there. Okay, so I was waiting to hear about judgments. Okay,
that's the second one.
That's the second one. Okay, all right. I'm just tracking with you. Okay, the first one is demands.
Yeah,
okay.
Demands. Basically, she's telling him, hey, you park over here, don't park over there, because where you're parking right now is really stupid.
Yeah, go ahead.
You see, and what that does, of course, is that here they're out on a date, they're having an intimate experience, and she's judging him on the way he's parking. And
making a demand.
Well, and judging him.
Okay, so you're going to combine the two now.
Well, as a matter of fact, the two of them often come together.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But I separate them out so that people can understand exactly how they're handling their
But you see, I can see having an intimate conversation and everything is going smoothly, and it would pop in as a demand like, I'd rather we not talk about this right now, or you always talk about that for such length of time. It really bothers me when you do this. I mean, and that's kind of a demand. Let's move the topic.
That's disrespectful. To say I'd rather not talk about this right now is perfectly fine.
Okay, all right.
That's not a demand.
But it's how you do it, maybe, or if you embellish it.
To say that you keep going on and on about this and it drives me crazy, that is a disrespectful judgment.
And my point is that could happen in quotes, an intimate conversation. It could creep in with a reaction to something that's being done. Totally understand. But you were saying typically it's not done in intimate conversation, the enemies.
Well, I would say this, that it isn't done in an intimate conversation where people are truly getting along in a romantic relationship. See, basically you avoid that kind of thing like the plague because you know what kind of reaction you're going to get.
Okay, so we have, say it again, disrespect?
Well, the first is demand. You're telling them to park over here instead of there.
Here. Okay, demands.
The second one is being disrespectful. The where you're planning to park is wrong.
Okay, demands, disrespect.
And then anger is the third one. Now, we didn't have
Where's
anger.
judgment in all this?
The second one, disrespectful judgments.
Oh, see, I didn't hear that.
Right.
But the disrespectful judgments. Okay.
Right. And then the third is angry outbursts. Of course, if you're out on a date and trying to enjoy each other and one of you loses your temper, that's it. I mean, you have lost everything possible to have gained.
You've lost your intimate conversation.
Right. Well, yeah, and people do. I mean, they're having a deep conversation and they get upset and then they blow up. And what in the world? How is that going to turn out in terms of love bank withdrawals? I mean, it's going to be massive. And then the final one is dwelling on mistakes of the past. So here we are together having a wonderful time, and you're reminded of something I did years ago that really upset you, and you feel obliged to talk about it because it's on your mind.
Or we're doing something that reminds the person of the incident. I mean, this is not us. We don't do this.
No, we don't.
But I could see how that could happen, too. You're at a certain restaurant, you've ordered a certain meal, and, all of a sudden, a memory comes back regarding a similar situation, and you bring this up, and it was a bad memory, and you say, boy, this reminds me of, remember when you did da-da-da-da-da,
right. And
that's not a good thing to do.
And I draw a distinction between dwelling on mistakes of the past and mentioning them. In other words, I think it's perfectly legitimate to say that this place upsets me because of da-da-da-da-da. But the dwelling of it means that we now spend the whole evening talking about that horrible experience.
How wrong it went.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, there is a sense in which I'm all in favor of revealing reactions. I mean, I think that you need to be able to react to me accurately. You know, if I do something that's upsetting you, you need to let me know right away. I need to make an adjustment right away. But then to keep talking about it is inappropriate.
So here's the situation. Okay, so I have French onion soup as the first course at this lovely restaurant. And I say, oh, you know what? This soup really reminds me. Remember when you spilled it all over me? It didn't happen, folks. I'm making this up. And is that okay to remember that much? But if I just went on and said,
it reminds me of the time you spilled it all over me.
All over me. That would be okay, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay. But what would be wrong would it be then to say, and you were so clumsy. How could you have possibly done that?
Then you drop into disrespectful judgments, and then
Notice
it becomes
how easy I could come up with that in the illustration. Right, exactly. Okay, and that did not happen. Right. Came out of my mind. Yes.
Now the question is, why do people tend to do that? Because we struggle with so many couples where a spouse will just keep harping on a particular issue. For hours, literally hours. I mean, the question is, how can you do? How is that possible?
Yeah.
And yet they do. And a spouse will sit there and try to listen and try to understand, and the other spouse just goes on and on about.
Well,
the question is, why does that happen? And from a psychological standpoint, I have to answer that it has a lot to do with how painful it is for this person. And they want to relieve the pain, and the way they think they can do that is by talking about it a lot.
And causing another person's pain.
Well, possibly,
yes,
but I think a lot of it has to do with their own feelings of
Okay, well, now you're legitimatizing it, and you really don't want
I'm
people
just
to
saying
do that.
why do people do things, and there's
But
always a reason for
okay, there's a reason,
yeah.
but we don't want that reason to be the excuse to continue to do it,
no,
right?
And my argument has always been that doesn't really work. It doesn't help, and more importantly, you're hurting your other spouse when you do it.
Well, we want to thank this emailer for getting us going on this topic, first of all, but we're very excited about what's going on with her and her husband, and we're here for them should they have any bumps in the road. Well, more questions and answers on the other side. Do you and your spouse know what to do, but just can't get yourselves to do it? If motivation is your problem, try the Marriage Builders online program. It comes complete with an accountability coach to help motivate you every step of the way. First, you view the online seminar, where Dr. Harley will explain his basic concepts and help you identify and organize your problems so you can resolve them in a systematic way. Then, your accountability coach will guide you through the solutions to those problems as you complete Dr. Harley's home study courses, His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. Your coach will communicate with you throughout the program by email and telephone whenever you have questions or need encouragement. And your progress will be evaluated by your coach. For more information about the Marriage Builders online program, click the tab Courses, Seminar, and Accountability, and then look for program number 3 for a complete description. Restore passion to your marriage. Register today. So glad you've joined us for today's Marriage Builders Radio. Let's go back to the emails that have come our way via mbradio@marriagebuilders.com. That's the email address you can use to send us your questions, your concerns, and even topic ideas. Include your phone number if you'd like to consider joining us as a caller. I'll contact you off air. And then also include your mailing address, because we want to always send you a free book, one of Dr. Harley's books that can help you further. And having the address just expedites the process. So that's mbradio@marriagebuilders.com.
And we absolutely do not use the address for any other purpose.
Absolutely.
We guarantee you, you're not going to be on any list. You're not going to be getting advertisements in the mail.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's only for mailing a free thing. Even if we're doing a seminar somewhere, we don't even go to those addresses. No. In fact, there's no master list at all. No. Okay, well, let's move on to an email. We're kind of getting responsive emails at the top of the show. First, we heard from the wife of one of our callers and her reaction, and it was very positive and glowing. We're very happy about that. And now we're hearing another response to our addressing Brad's email, his original email. And his original email was, how long should you date before marriage? And to summarize, he goes on to say in that first email that he had dated for 8 months, and there's he's got a woman he's very interested in. He goes on to say that they dated for 8 months, and there is an hour drive between them. Everything has been great, and he loves her so much, and the only arguments they have been are about marriage. He told her he felt no need to get married again, and they talked about moving in together down the road. He believes he will know the right time to marry and is in no hurry. He has been divorced for 3 years, and his girlfriend's second marriage just ended divorce 2 months ago.
And he also mentioned on that program that they started dating while she was still married.
While the divorce was being processed, right? Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be right. Well, he responded, and so we're going to be addressing now his response, because he still has concerns, and it's worthy of helping him out further here. He says, thank you again. I received these segments from the broadcast and have listened to them a few times. I must say that both of you are very insightful from the limited information given. We both have children. Hers are older, 23, and on his own, and 17-year-old with autism. My children are 7 and 9. So there will be definitely some blending, and I think we understand that it won't be all that pleasant. Then he goes on. He says, the segment did raise some concerns around the high rate of divorce with blended families. Now, what did you state regarding, did you talk about that?
Years ago, I read an article that has stuck in my mind about, I did some research on blended families, and several articles said that it's the number one cause of divorce. And another article said that 85% of all blended families end in divorce eventually. And they put the reason was that the conflicts over the children so incredibly emotional and unresolvable that the couple just flat out can't live together after a while. And so what we have done with the couples that we counsel who are in blended families is we warn them that this can happen, that you need to become an expert in knowing how to resolve conflicts that have to do with stepchildren. How do you handle the stepchild and your spouse's support of his children and tends not to be supportive of yours. I mean, you have a lot of that kind of thing going on too. And also stepchildren in blended families tend to run wild. Now, that's not always the case, but it's often the case. And there's jealousy.
And, of course, our answer is the use of policy of joint agreement, right?
Which is hard to follow.
Yes, it is.
Now, the main problem in blended families is that there is so much turmoil and so much chaos that the couple completely loses sight of the romance of their relationship. So normally what I will say is that my policy of undivided attention is extremely important with blended families. You got to get away from this chaos that's going on and enjoy your relationship with each other. And build your love bank balances, because if you're in love with each other, these issues that come about in blended families are a whole lot easier to solve than if you don't love each other.
I would think guilt would play a big role in the biological parents. In other words, they know they love this other person so much they want to marry them. Mm-hmm. But once they're married, then they are trying to balance this guilt feeling that I really need to spend more time with my children.
Oh yeah, right.
Because of putting them through this divorce and having to go with their mother or their father for certain weekends. It's tough on them, so I got to really compensate. And then that takes it away from the marriage. And
the children contribute to that, because then when the parents go off together alone, if they go on a vacation without the children, which is what I recommend, they get all upset. They said, you care more about this person you married than you do me. And, of course, from my perspective, if you want to have a great marriage, that has to be the case. I mean, you have to put the person you married number one in your life.
Would you say that if a man and woman going into a marriage that would make for a blended family situation, that the only way that they can maneuver through this minefield would be to say before the marriage even, we will abide by the rule of the policy of joint agreement?
Well, you have to not only agree to it, but you have to be able to do it.
But most time it's not even discussed.
In very difficult situations.
Most time, though, it's not even discussed. So that's my point.
Right.
And many of the couples that we have heard from, the policy of joint agreement is a foreign concept. They just thought, well, I'll be nice to your kids, you be nice to my kids, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work.
And you need to have a few examples of the issues that come up in blended families where children are being disrespectful. That's a huge problem. Disrespect.
And these are discussions that he could have, though, before marriage. How would we resolve these issues?
When your son is disrespectful toward me, what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to handle that situation? And it might only be a good idea to try to practice doing that before you actually marry.
And by the way, the utilization of the policy of joint agreement in blended families, the ones that we have talked to, it is making a difference.
It does.
It is making a difference.
We've seen a lot of very successful outcomes.
Right, exactly. Yep. But Brad has more questions.
Okay.
And the key question is the next sentence. He said, also, I have a question. Is she more interested in marriage or me? And maybe we brought that up. And he said that hit me very hard.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to talk about that when we come back on today's Marriage Builders Radio. Would you like your spouse to hear what you just heard on Marriage Builders Radio? Or would you like to hear past broadcasts on topics of special interest to you? We are now offering unlimited downloads of over 5,000 Marriage Builders Radio segments that you can listen to as often as you like. All advertisements and musical spacing has been eliminated, so you hear only the segment itself. There are 3 ways to find the segments you want to hear. They're identified by the original date of the broadcast, by the primary topic of discussion, and by a brief description of the segment, including the caller's question. By using our search engine, you can identify segments that are of interest to you. unlimited downloads of over 5,000 Marriage Builders radio segments. Take advantage of this offering. To download Marriage Builders segments of your choice, go to Radio Archives on the marriagebuilders.com website, and everything will be explained to you. That's Radio Archives at marriagebuilders.com. Welcome back to Marriage Builders Radio. Let's go right back to Brad's email. It's a follow-up email giving us a little more information first, and then asking a few more questions regarding his possible remarriage, marrying again, I should say. He is a divorcee, and so is his girlfriend, but she's just been divorced now 2 months. He goes on with his second question here. First of all, he was concerned about the rate of divorce with blended families, and we discussed that already. And he said, and the question of whether she is more interested in marriage or me hit me hard. I came to believe that my first wife was with me for that reason, and for financial security. That 9-year marriage ended after 3 years of infidelity on her part, and as such, that issue is of particularly interesting to me. In other words, it really hits home, he says. That was when I was first introduced, by the way, to Dr. Harley's program. I identified the things in me that helped to cause the infidelity and like to think it has made me a better partner. That was the worst time of my life, and certainly don't wish to ever feel that way again. I'm sure that was the main factor causing my initial reluctance to marriage. As for my girlfriend's relationship, she was married first young and divorced after roughly 10 years and was not married again for almost 14 years. She did, of course, date. The second marriage, they had only known each other for 2 weeks when he asked her to marry him, and she agreed. Of course, that didn't last long. I will say that we have agreed that we won't move in together until we are married. And we should have, yay,
yep.
Type. Okay, we're happy to hear that.
A huge
decision
factor that is going to lead to their ultimate success together. Mm-hmm.
And for our sake and the children of our, let me say it again, for our sake and the sake of our children, I believe that the idea of us moving in together was simply both of us finding it difficult to be apart. Remember, they're an hour apart in distance. And he ends this by saying, that is really the only thing we have had serious arguments about. Let's see. Did I read the last paragraph?
We've come a long way.
Yeah. We've come along.
Resolving issues. That's good.
Okay. I believe that the idea of us moving in together was simply both of us find it, but we understand the hazards around doing so before we are married. And that's the one thing they argue about. Mm-hmm. Is it getting married or living together?
No, getting married.
Okay. We have come a long way in resolving issues. Most problems are talked about calmly, and we are able to reach an agreeable resolution. That's good news. And he ends it by saying, if you or Dr. Harley have any further advice, I would certainly welcome it, especially around how to know if it's marriage or me that she is after.
Well, we certainly would encourage them to eventually get married, but there are some very important steps to take prior to that. And one of the question of did you marry me for what I do for you, or did you marry me for me? To me,
that's a fine line, isn't it?
Well, no, you always marry the person for what you think they're going to do for you.
Well, exactly, and what they have been doing for you. I mean, that's what we talk about, the needs. You're meeting my needs. That's doing something for me. That's how I fall in love with you.
Right.
But I think he's concerned about the financial him. In other words, she's looking for marriage for financial support.
Right, and that's one of the emotional needs. And I've often argued to men, you know, did she marry you because you'll support her financially? Yeah. Okay, let's talk about what you expect her to do for you. I mean, you don't expect anything of her? I mean, she just has to show up. You know,
I doubt it.
and when we talk about emotional needs, a lot of times I want couples to rank their emotional needs. I start out by saying that, okay, here are the 10 possibilities, and I want you to know you're only going to get one of the 10, and you can choose the one you want. So you can have affection or sexual fulfillment or recreational companionship or conversation, but you can't have more than one. Which one would you choose? Well, they invariably say, I would never marry anybody that only gives me one. And I say, well, okay, that you've demonstrated a very important point of mine, which is that you marry somebody for what you're expecting them to do for you. See? Okay, but the point is that he's expecting her to do certain things. Certainly 5 of the 10 emotional needs he would expect her to meet for him. So financial support turns out to be one of her needs. That's well understood and acceptable. See? So I don't know that there is a sense in which a woman could marry a man for financial support, and that's it. And she puts up a really good act to make it look like she's passionately attracted to him. And then once they marry, all that falls apart.
We had a caller just last week, and she's been married for some time now, but she does feel that her husband married her for the money and what she could provide for him. And we treated that as if that was not a happy situation.
Well, the problem...
And
really,
I think that's what Brad is concerned about. Would that be happening with him? And you're saying, well, financial support is one of the needs. So not to worry.
Going back to the case where a woman will marry a wealthy man for his financial support and give him the impression that she is passionately interested in him, and then they get married and it comes to an end.
Okay, and that's what our woman caller was having with her husband.
With her husband, it basically all of the romance that they had prior to marriage has disappeared. See?
Right.
And so what I'm arguing here is that you can't just meet one emotional need. You know, I talk about meeting 5 emotional needs. If this wealthy woman who is supporting her husband had a husband meeting her top 5 emotional needs, she wouldn't be complaining about it.
Well, she got married because he was. The point was that
he stopped doing it after they were married.
Exactly. So where is the guarantee that the person is truly being honest before the marriage and it will continue after the marriage?
Well, this is where you have to take some time to get to know the other person. And this is where, of course, I recommended, take your time deciding. One of my basic rules of thumb for marriage is that unless both spouses are enthusiastic about getting married, they shouldn't do it. And I do put a kind of a 2-year time limit on dating.
They've only been dating 8 months.
Yeah, and I would encourage them to date at least another year. And what we want to see is what will happen when his 2 children are living in the same house as this boy with autism. I would worry about that a little bit. And I would say that I've worked with lots and lots of people with autism, and they can be very wonderful people, and they can grow out of their autism. I mean, I've counseled people that had horrible autism as children and as teen, and then by the time they're 30, they're married and they have a job and they're doing just great.
That's good news.
So the basic idea is that autism is not necessarily a sentence for life that you're just going to struggle. But I would worry about, for example, angry outbursts. They have problems with angry outbursts usually, and the question is everybody safe with this guy? And it depends. It depends on how he's been treated, how he has reacted to her divorce, how he reacted to the marriage. See, I think he was doing probably quite well, I would expect, prior to her last marriage. Mm-hmm. Because they were together and she didn't bring other men into her life, and so I would pay a whole lot of attention to how this autistic boy thinks about him. I would go out with this boy. I would spend time with him. I would go fishing with him. I would get to know him really well. I would want this boy to think of me as his new dad. That to me is a huge element in all of this that needs to be resolved one way or another.
Well, Brad, we've had good conversation with your follow-up questions here, and I hope it has helped you further. And I say that to everybody who sends us emails and we address your question. If you have follow-up, you get back to us, because we want to make sure that the point is clear that we have been making. Well, when we come back, we have more questions to answer. Have you been to the forum, the MarriageBuilders.com forum? It's a community where people come with their marriage problems and receive direction, support, and encouragement from those who have solved those problems in their own marriages. They did this by using Dr. Harley's Marriage Builders concepts. You can view the daily interaction without registering, but to join in the discussion, you need to register. If you have any questions about registering or anything else about the forum, the administrator will help you by email. Your identity is kept completely confidential, and there's no charge. Just about every marital problem imaginable has been addressed on the forum. So don't hesitate to describe your problem to those who can help. Whether your problems are simple or complicated, new, or have been going on for years, the Marriage Builders Forum can help you find solutions. Are you looking for directions, support, and encouragement in your marriage? Check out the Marriage Builders Forum. I trust you're listening on your Marriage Builders app. You are? That's good news. But what if you're not? Well, I'd love to tell you how you can download the Marriage Builders app free of charge on your smartphone. You can do it two ways. You can type in marriagebuilders.com/app. Information will be there. Or you can go to our home page and scroll down on the right-hand column, and the information will be there as well. Well, this listener is writing about pornography, and it's a man. He says, my wife and I have been married for 13 years. By all accounts, we are totally happy, I think. For the past year or so, I've been seeing that my wife has been watching a lot of pornography, and it's the kind of pornography that worries me, namely gangbang. I'm so afraid as to why and what ifs. Please help. Now, he's concerned about the pornography, is he? Or is he concerned about the type of pornography?
Yeah, and my response to him was that you should be worried about pornography, period.
Yes.
And basically, whatever your tastes are in pornography are somewhat irrelevant if you're not engaged in the use of pornography. But the point is that it is a form of sex outside of marriage, and so. What I encourage him to do is not be alarmed at the type of pornography she was watching. Ever since 50 Shades of Grey came out, you have a lot of this kind of thing that expresses. It made it look like sadomasochistic kinds of things were interesting, you know, and should be pursued somehow because it seemed to work out so well for the couple in the movie. And my argument has always been that it is a form of sex that violates just about everything I've ever wanted to have my couples experience in sex, which is love, which is care, which is basically you're there for that person to help them, not to hurt them.
And may I add, it wasn't even in marriage that this was taking place.
Right.
By the way, we did not see the movie, nor did we read the book.
I'm just aware of it.
No, aware of all this, right. There was so much written about it, you couldn't miss the content.
But the basic idea is that I would encourage both he and his wife to avoid viewing pornography, period, and enjoy their
Well, how do you broach that subject?
Exclusively with each other.
I mean, she obviously didn't say, I think I'm going to look into this. I mean, I don't think they had a discussion about it. So how does he then go to her and say, this concerns me?
I think, yeah. And we've had a number of couples call us, write us, where it's the husband that wants the wife to stop engaging in sex outside of marriage. But basically, they would have started it together. Now, this could be open marriages, for example. It could be threesomes, whatever it is.
Or it could be watching pornography together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the idea is that he starts recognizing that his wife is developing interests apart from him, away from him. So before they used to see this as something that they enjoyed together as a couple, and now they're separated. Mm-hmm. It's separating from them. And of course, that's the problem with pornography. Viewing pornography, you're actually engaging. Even if you're sitting together in the room together, your fantasies are about other people. And so the feeling that I have about marriage or about sex in marriage is you'll be looking at each other when you have sex. You should be your experience should be a mutual enjoyment and mutual care
of each other.
Each other.
Right.
And you don't get that with pornography. So I would just my advice: stop using pornography. Now, what if she says, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm basically going to do what I'm going to do." Well, then you have the problem of sexual addiction. Where she's now getting such a high out of all of this that the sex that they have in her marriage isn't enough to satisfy her. And this is the problem that we have with pornography in general, and that is it creates a contrast effect. And to remind the listeners, the contrast effect is that when you compare two things that would otherwise be enjoyable in their own right. But when they are seen together, the thing that is the most enjoyable makes the other seem boring.
But I'm still in the situation of him coming to her and saying, this concerns me. I am, whatever it is, I'm offended. I am hurt. I feel it's destructive. Whatever he's going to be saying to her.
I'm concerned.
I'm concerned. Okay. And then she says, well, I'm sorry you're concerned, but I'm in charge of my life. And I have every right to do this.
Yep.
What does he do then? See, if she's saying, well, I don't want you to be concerned, I'll stop immediately. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think he needs to tell her that he is concerned. I think that in the letter he sent me, it sounded a bit judgmental. In other words, is her taste in pornography wrong? I'd say viewing pornography is a problem, period. What you do in the kind of thing you view is not as important to me as the fact that you're doing it at all. And so he instead of coming to her and saying, I think you're going down a road that's going to lead you to a very bad situation. Instead I would say, I'm thinking that viewing pornography is just a bad idea in marriage. And he basically picked this up by reading one of my Q&A columns.
Okay.
And so it comes out of a Q&A column.
But what does he recommend for her then? That
we both stop using pornography.
We start, okay.
Right.
And that we decide other things that we're going to be doing together.
Yeah.
And if you're tempted, let me know. I mean,
Right.
what does he do with her now? I don't know if she's addicted, but her interest in this.
Can we agree to not use pornography in the future and limit our sex to each other?
Okay.
I mean,
all
and
right.
then
That's the beginning.
She might say anything. I mean, if they have a good relationship, she'd say, "Sure, I thought you liked me to view pornography. I thought that was good. I thought you liked that. So now that I know that it bothers you, let's both decide we're not going to use pornography."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, most women are more offended with their husbands viewing pornography than men are offended with their wives.
That's typically the questions we get, right?
Yeah.
The woman concerned.
So I would say in this particular case, I don't know that he's going to get arguments with her about it. I think that she might actually be relieved that he's not going to be viewing pornography.
Okay. All right. That's good news. All right. We're going to go on now to Eunora. We talked about Eunora and the whole idea of getting control on angry outbursts just the other day. And she was going to be reading Love Busters, and we sent her 5 Steps to Romantic Love. And help me understand. Remember, what chapter was she going to read in Love Busters?
On Angry Outbursts.
On Angry Outbursts.
Yeah.
Learning how to relax.
There are actually 2 chapters.
In the face of adversity, etc.
Two chapters. One on how angry outbursts ruins marriages, and then the second on how to overcome angry outbursts altogether.
Okay, and then she writes this now. She says there's a little bit more before this, but this is basically her question. The area I feel most difficult to remain calm in is dealing with my children. 2 common examples might be, number 1, interruptions from our boys. I want to stay calm to correct them patiently rather than reacting with irritation. Number 2, when discussions with our teen boys turns disrespectful on their part. How do I remain in control of my own emotions and respond correctly? How do I, as their parent, guide a conversation in a calm, respectful way when they, in quotes, push my buttons? How do I eliminate said buttons?
Well, first of all, there's the overarching issue of how can you avoid an angry outburst no matter what their situation turns out to be. My argument has always been that angry outbursts are inappropriate, period. And so to the extent that you never have an angry outburst, you are going to live a much happier life.
Are you saying that buttons will always exist?
Yeah. Now in her case, what I've recommended is that she train herself to not lose her temper regardless of how disrespectful the kids turn out to be. And so she needs to practice, and she needs to practice every day. And it starts with relaxation training, where basically you might end up sitting in a room by yourself and imagine what your children are saying to you that would be disrespectful, and try to be relaxed while that's going on. Now, the purpose of that is to get adrenaline out of your system when you are faced with a frustrating situation.
So what you're doing is you're deactivating the button. The button will be there, but it's not going to be activated when they push it.
Well, let's put it this way. You're redirecting your body to treat frustration differently. Instead of it going to your anger center, it goes to your intelligence and problem-solving center.
I like that one, too. That's good. Right.
So when I'm faced with frustration, my immediate thought is, what am I going to do about it that's going to be productive? Instead of how am I going to destroy the person that's causing me to be frustrated. And that's a very, very important point for me to be making, because I had problems with anger before, where basically I wanted to destroy the person that was upsetting me. Mm-hmm. Now I'm thinking of what can I do to handle this situation in a way that is going to solve the problem rather than to punish the offender.
And I'm glad you're bringing it up in context with the children, because having an angry outburst with your kids, they already have your genetic disposition. Now, they may have not gotten that from you, but nevertheless, it possibly is there. Mm-hmm. And by modeling how to control your response will be a wonderful educational tool for them.
Sure.
So when her teenage son is disrespectful to her response then, when under control, is?
Right. Her immediate problem is going to be to learn to relax when in the face of frustration so that it becomes a habit.
Okay, but
so
when she
whenever
learns
I'm frustrated,
that,
I relax.
When she learns that, then her verbal response would be?
Her verbal response would be that I'm very sorry that you feel that way toward me. I hope that someday we can solve this problem, but for now, I want you to clean up your room.
Oh. I'm sorry, but I love it. And then he comes back with more disrespect, and now he's getting angry. Yeah. And then what does she do?
Her basic problem is to not engage with an angry person with an angry response. Mm-hmm. You basically, if at all possible, try to calm the guy down, but also talk to her son about learning to control his temper if he's got a problem.
Right.
With it.
Good idea. Okay. So, Eunora, glad you got back to us, and trust that conversation is helpful as well. Well, we have more to talk about in our final moments together, so stay with us. We will be back with more Marriage Builders Radio. Have you been to marriagebuilders.com yet? Its purpose is to help you resolve your marital conflicts in a way that creates romantic love. If you both follow the advice this website provides, you'll solve your problems and be in love with each other in no time. If you're new to marriagebuilders.com, before you read anything else, you should take the tour. Click Site Tour on the home page, and you'll have a complete overview in a matter of minutes. Then go to Basic Concepts. That's because they provide the logical basis for all Dr. Harley's solutions to marital problems, and it's completely free of charge. If you only have a few minutes and you want a quick overview, read the first topic in that section called A Summary of Dr. Harley's Basic Concepts. Take in Dr. Harley's articles and Q&A columns, interact with others on the forum, and learn to become an expert in making your marriage the best it can be. That's marriagebuilders.com. Well, I'm glad we have breaks because I find out things that I didn't know about. I was going to remind you to check out Dr. Harley's latest article, Dating in Marriage, and he had said that he's going to be putting out now one a week. And so I said, so when can we expect the second? I just posted it today.
I'm a couple days ahead of myself.
I congratulate you, but I'm glad I asked the question because I did want to let the folks know. So the second in the series of articles on dating in marriage.
Yeah, I expect to have maybe 10, 12, 15, 20. I don't know. See, the whole question
soon to be a book.
Yeah, dating in marriage to me is so incredibly essential, and I have such a hard time talking people into it that I thought I needed to provide a more detailed explanation of why you do this and what you do. What is it you do when you date? And is it different when you have children, young kids, when they're teenagers? Is it different when your kids are out of the house? Is it different when you've retired? I mean, how is dating always the same throughout marriage, or should you look at different dynamics that are going on? So I want to basically think about all these things, along with the whole idea of how do you date somebody you don't even like? So we're going to deal with that issue as well.
Okay.
And so I expect it to be quite interesting.
Okay. Well, along with that, you had prior to this, posted the article, How to Complain in Marriage. And we've had a lot of responses on that, by the way. And Gerald is writing us, and he says, how do I express complaints to my wife when she is hypersensitive and sees everything as a criticism? Even when she asks if I like her outfit, and I say no, I can tell this is upsetting her. How should I express my honesty and complaints in a way that would not upset her?
Well, there needs to be a certain amount of understanding that probably he was disrespectful to her in the past. And she has basically come to interpret even the right words. I mean, if he uses all the right words, says, how do I look in this outfit? Well, I don't think I don't find it terribly appealing, which is correct. She could then say, you think I look fat in this, don't you? Because he'd been complaining about her being overweight in the past. So the basic idea would be that there's an argument that could be made that no matter what words you use, a person can interpret it as being disrespectful.
Because of the past.
Because of the past. Now, to the extent that he is able to express his complaint as a reaction, emotional reaction, as opposed to a judgment over time. In other words, the better he gets at doing this, and he's never making a demand on her, he's never actually saying something disrespectful, sooner or later she's going to see it as basically a reaction.
I think the biggest error that people can make in complaining is you can start out very graciously, which how you describe it, it bothers me when. That's a good lead-in to, and then you fill in the blank. But then often people get on a roll, and they don't not only say that,
right.
Then here we go. It bothers me when, and da-da-da-da, I have more to say about this.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest issue probably in knowing when to stop in the complaint area.
I usually say 30 seconds is sufficient.
Okay. So set your clock and say, I have a complaint. Let's watch the time.
The information is there, and that's all you need to say.
But now what he's really, I had it titled it Honesty and Complaints, because really he was wondering when to be honest with her. Do I look good in this outfit?
Yeah,
I mean, that's not a complaint. You're asking for a person's opinion.
Yeah, I basically, and you ask me this a lot, and I will often tell you that what you're wearing doesn't appeal to me. That you have other things that look better.
And then often I'll say, if I kind of like it, I'll say, really? Why?
I'm going to wear it anyway.
No. First I ask why. Tell me, give me the input. Give me the reason you're saying this.
Generally speaking, you can't formulate exactly why. It's more that, you like.
Is
you
it the
prefer
color?
one,
Is the shape?
You like
is
one
it
thing more than another.
Do I look heavier in this one as opposed to the other outfit? I mean, these are the interrogation questions I give to you, and then I make my own opinion.
But you also know that I'm really deep down not being judgmental.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm not being judgmental. And so you look at me.
And I'm trying to pull out more information from you.
Right. You want, you're doing it so that other people won't think you look stupid in whatever it is you're wearing. So you say, how do you feel about this, Bill? Well, Bill thinks it looks great. Yeah, but you're in love with me. Everything I wear looks great.
But no, you don't say everything looks great. So that's the good part.
That's the point. See, I would instinctively try to. I would look at everything you're wearing and say, I love you, and whatever you wear is okay with me. I mean, that would be my basic
But I'm
reaction.
asking because
But you want me to be a critic.
Right, exactly.
See?
Well, and I offer it for you. You don't always ask.
Right.
But I'll say, don't really like that one. And you will abide by that, and we'll make some negotiations on what you are going to wear.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, our time is gone. I'm looking at the clock here, and here comes the music, so that's a reminder. So glad you could join us today, and we trust you will join us again. I'm Joyce Harley with Dr. Bill Harley. This is Marriage Builders Radio, building marriages to last a lifetime. Join the thousands of couples who have learned step by step how to experience a meaningful and fulfilling love relationship. They did this by completing Dr. Harley's online seminar and home study courses, His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. Here's how it works. You'll begin by watching an online seminar where Dr. Harley will help you identify the problems you face in your marriage. Then, the home study courses will show you how to solve those marital problems in a systematic way. Go to marriagebuilders.com homepage and click the tab Courses, Seminar, and Accountability. Look for program number 2 for a description of the seminar and the courses. Then follow the instructions on that page to place your order. Start the program the day the package arrives. And if you're not completely satisfied, send it back to us within 30 days, and you'll receive a full refund, including shipping charges. Restore passion to your marriage. Order today. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain.